Most men misunderstand power because they misunderstand visibility. They believe power comes from being seen, from being known, from being understood. They think authenticity is strength. They think transparency is virtue. They think revealing themselves earns trust. It doesn't. It exposes them. Power has never belonged to the man who shows himself freely. Power belongs to the man who decides what is seen, when it is seen, and by whom. Silence controls perception. Distance controls desire, and masks control reality. This video is not about lying. It is not about being fake. It is not about pretending to be someone you are not. It is about understanding a brutal psychological truth most people never accept. People do not respond to who you are. They respond to who they think you are. And that perception is something that can be engineered. Welcome to How to Control How People See You, the psychology of masks. Welcome to Obsidian Mastery. From childhood, you were taught a dangerous lie. Be yourself. Show who you really are. People will accept you for you. This advice is comforting, it is moral, and it is catastrophically naive because the world does not reward authenticity. It rewards coherence, control, and predictability. The moment you expose your full emotional range, your fears, your insecurities, your contradictions, you become readable. And what is readable is controllable. Every hierarchy, social, professional, political, is governed by perception, not truth, not morality. Perception. The man who understands this stops bleeding his inner world into the outer one. He builds a mask, not to hide weakness, but to prevent access. A mask is not deception. A mask is filtration. It is the difference between a fortress and an open field. A fortress still exists. It still contains everything inside, but access is restricted. Weak men leak their identity everywhere. Their emotions spill into their voice. Their insecurity bleeds into their posture. Their neediness radiates through their behavior. Strong men compress themselves. They choose restraint. They choose ambiguity. They choose control. And ambiguity creates authority. When people cannot read you, they project onto you. When they project onto you, they fill the silence with their assumptions. And assumptions are rarely neutral. They are shaped by fear, respect, and imagination. This is where the mask begins to work. Look at every powerful figure in history. Emperors, generals, strategists, rulers, they were never fully accessible, never emotionally transparent, never completely known. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while revealing almost nothing of himself publicly. Sun Tzu taught that all warfare is deception, not just on the battlefield, but in presence. Machiavelli understood that appearance outweighs intention every time. And Nietzsche warned, everything that is profound loves a mask. Not because truth is weak, but because truth is dangerous when exposed to the wrong eyes. The modern world hates this idea. It worships exposure, oversharing, confession culture. People narrate their trauma online, broadcast their emotions, display their inner chaos publicly, and then wonder why they are not respected. Respect does not come from vulnerability without control. It comes from containment. A man who cannot contain himself cannot command others. The mask is not suppression. It is discipline. Psychologically, humans are constantly scanning for cues. Is this person confident, predictable, emotionally stable, dominant, or submissive? You communicate these answers long before you speak, through posture, through pacing, through what you react to and what you ignore. The mask begins with non-reaction. When you stop reacting automatically, people lose leverage over you. When they lose leverage, they lose certainty. When they lose certainty, they hesitate. And hesitation is where power shifts. Most men think influence is about asserting. It isn't. Influence is about shaping the emotional environment. The masked man does not chase validation. He does not correct every misunderstanding. He does not rush to explain himself. He lets people sit with incomplete information, because incomplete information forces attention. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is pressure, and the mask amplifies that pressure. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The more emotionally honest you are with everyone, the less special your inner world becomes. Scarcity creates value. Access creates hierarchy. A man who is open to all is respected by none. A man who is selective becomes magnetic. The mask teaches you when to reveal and when not to. At first, wearing a mask feels unnatural because weakness is familiar, impulse is comfortable. Reaction feels honest, but honesty without strategy is self-sabotage. The mask is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming intentional. You are not erasing yourself. You are refining your signal. Authenticity became a religion when society realized control was easier through exposure. Think about it. A man who hides nothing cannot maneuver. A man who shares everything cannot retreat. A man who wears no mask is permanently vulnerable. So the world reframed vulnerability as virtue. Be real. Open up. Say how you feel. Not because it empowers you, but because it makes you predictable. And predictability is exploitable. Every system that wants compliance encourages expression. Corporations encourage open culture. Institutions encourage sharing. Social platforms reward confession, outrage, emotional exhibition. Why? Because emotional men are easier to steer. The more you express, the more data you give. The more data you give, the easier it is to anticipate you. The easier you are to anticipate, the less dangerous you are. The mask interrupts this cycle. It removes free information from the environment. Most men fear wearing a mask because they confuse it with deceit. But psychology does not operate on moral definitions. It operates on signals. And signals are always curated, whether consciously or not. The only difference is this: weak men curate unconsciously, strong men curate deliberately. Every time you choose not to speak, you are signaling. Every time you delay a reaction, you are signaling. Every time you let a misunderstanding sit unresolved, you are signaling. The question is not whether you wear a mask, it is whether you control it or it controls you. The unmasked man is easy to destabilize. Insult him, and he reacts. Ignore him, and he spirals. Challenge him, and he over-explains. His identity is attached to external validation, so external pressure collapses him. The masked man operates differently. He is not empty, he is contained. His reactions are delayed. His emotions are processed privately. His responses are chosen, not leaked. And this creates an illusion of depth. People assume he is thinking more than he is saying. They assume he sees more than he reveals. They assume power. Where there is restraint, often they are correct. One of the most important psychological effects of the mask is projection. When information is missing, the human mind fills the gap. If you are calm, reserved, and controlled, people project strength. If you are silent under pressure, they project confidence. If you do not defend yourself, they project superiority. This is not manipulation. This is human nature. The mask simply allows it to happen. The reason people are uncomfortable around quiet, unreadable men is simple. They cannot locate themselves in relation to you. They don't know if you approve. They don't know if you judge. They don't know if you dominate or submit. And uncertainty triggers psychological tension. That tension forces adjustment. People speak more, explain themselves, justify their actions. They reveal. You don't have to extract information. Silence pulls it out of them. This is why interrogators speak less, why judges maintain composure, why leaders appear distant. Distance magnifies authority. Closeness dilutes it. The mask creates distance without hostility. But here is where most men fail. They try to copy the external behavior without building the internal structure. They become cold on the surface, but chaotic underneath. They suppress emotion. Instead of mastering it, they confuse detachment with numbness. This makes the mask unstable. Eventually, it cracks. True masks are not rigid. They are anchored to discipline, anchored to identity, anchored to purpose. Without that foundation, the mask collapses under pressure. A real mask is not worn all the time. It is adjusted. Powerful men know when to reveal and when not to. Selective vulnerability builds trust. Total vulnerability destroys leverage. The masked man never reveals randomly. He reveals strategically, only when it benefits position. Only when it deepens influence, only when it strengthens control. This is why powerful men are often misunderstood. Some call them arrogant, some call them distant, some call them intimidating. None of that matters, because respect is not built on comfort. It is built on presence, and presence is forged through restraint. At this stage, most people resist this idea emotionally. They say, "This sounds lonely, this sounds manipulative, this sounds exhausting." It isn't. What's exhausting is emotional leakage. What's lonely is being understood by everyone and respected by no one. What's manipulative is pretending weakness is strength. The mask is freedom. Freedom from explaining yourself. Freedom from emotional coercion. Freedom from being readable. Power begins where reaction ends. Most men live in a state of constant response. Someone speaks, they reply. Someone provokes, they defend. Someone disapproves, they explain. This keeps them busy, reactive, psychologically poor. Because every reaction is a payment. You pay attention, you pay emotion, you pay energy. And the man who pays the most in social exchanges is never the one in control. The masked man understands emotional economy. He spends nothing unless there is return. Emotion is not weakness by itself. Uncontrolled emotion is when you react immediately, you signal dependency, dependency on approval, dependency on outcomes, dependency on how others behave, and dependency reverses hierarchy. The man who reacts is beneath the man who does not need to. This is why calm unnerves people. Calm suggests surplus. It suggests you are not threatened, not rushed, not dependent. And surplus is power. The mask is built through delayed response. Not silence for the sake of silence, but pause. A pause forces interpretation. When you pause, people wonder, is he thinking? Is he judging? Is he unimpressed? That uncertainty destabilizes them. They fill the gap with their own insecurities. Most men fear pauses because pauses feel like exposure. They rush to fill space. They rush to clarify. They rush to regain comfort. But comfort is not the goal. Control is. The masked man lets silence stretch just enough to shift gravity. There's a reason negotiations are won by the man who speaks last. There's a reason leaders do not rush their words. Language is not just communication. It is positioning. The fewer words you use, the more weight each one carries. Scarcity increases value. But the true power of the mask is not silence. It is consistency. People fear unpredictability, but they respect stability. The masked man behaves the same under praise as under pressure, the same under attention as under neglect, the same when winning as when losing. This emotional flatline confuses manipulation attempts. Praise doesn't inflate him. Insults don't provoke him. Threats don't rush him. And when nothing moves you easily, people stop trying. Here is something few men realize. People test you emotionally before they trust or respect you. They push boundaries. They provoke reactions. They apply pressure, not consciously, instinctively. They want to see. Where you break, the mask passes the test by refusing to play. This is where emotional containment becomes critical. Containment is not repression. Repression leaks. Containment's internal processing without external display. The emotion is felt but not expressed. The impulse arises but is not acted on. The thought forms but is not revealed. This makes your internal world private. Privacy creates leverage. The man without a mask broadcasts his inner state constantly. His tone shifts, his posture changes, his expressions betray him. Others don't need to guess, they can see. The masked man becomes unreadable, and unreadability creates hesitation. Hesitation creates space. Space allows control. This is why unreadable men are often labeled intimidating, not because they are aggressive, but because they cannot be mapped. Humans fear what they cannot predict. The mask does not threaten, it simply refuses access. Over time, something interesting happens. People begin to self-regulate around you. They speak more carefully. They explain themselves more fully. They hesitate before disrespect, not because you demanded it, but because your presence sets a psychological frame. You do not enter their emotional world. They adjust to yours. This is dominance without force. No confrontation, no intimidation, no aggression, just gravity. But here's the mistake many make at this stage. They think the mask is about becoming cold all the time. It is not. Coldness is a tool, not a personality. Permanent coldness makes you rigid. Rigid systems break. True control comes from selective warmth. The masked man can be warm, but only when it serves position. When warmth is rare, it becomes powerful. Think of the man who never reacts emotionally. Then imagine the moment he smiles, approves, speaks with softness. That moment carries weight because it is not cheap. The mask amplifies contrast. At this point, your perception shifts. You stop needing to convince people. You stop correcting impressions. You stop chasing clarity. You let others come to conclusions. And most of the time, they choose conclusions that favor you. The fear of being misunderstood is one of the strongest leashes society places on men. From early on, you are conditioned to explain yourself, to clarify intentions, to correct assumptions. Let me tell you what I meant. That's not who I really am. You misunderstood me. Every one of these phrases is a surrender, because the moment you feel compelled to correct perception, perception controls you. The masked man accepts a brutal truth. Understanding is optional. Control is not. Most misunderstandings are not dangerous. They are uncomfortable, and discomfort is what weak men avoid at all costs. They rush to be liked. They rush to be seen as good. They rush to dissolve tension. But tension is not your enemy. Tension is leverage. When people misunderstand you, three things happen psychologically. First, they project. Second, they adjust behavior cautiously. Third, they reveal their own values and fears. All three benefit you. The man who corrects misunderstanding interrupts this process. The man who tolerates it lets it work for him. Powerful men throughout history were constantly misunderstood, feared, misjudged, mischaracterized. They did not rush to clarify. They understood something. Most never learn. Reputation is shaped more by consistency than explanation. You do not need to tell people who you are. You show them selectively over time. The mask does not demand approval. It waits. Waiting is dominance. When you wait, you force others to move, to speak, to adjust, and whoever moves first gives information. This is why emotional neutrality feels threatening. People cannot tell if they are winning or losing with you. They cannot locate advantage, so they test, they provoke, they joke, they challenge. Each test is an opportunity, not to react, but to observe. Observation is the hidden weapon of the masked man. While others are busy managing impressions, he is reading behavior. Who becomes uncomfortable in silence? Who needs validation? Who over-explains? Who deflects? The mask turns social interaction into reconnaissance. Here is a dangerous truth. Most men reveal more in their attempts to be understood than they ever would by staying silent. The need to explain is the need to be accepted, and acceptance is never required for authority. At a certain level of mastery, something shifts internally. You stop fearing misinterpretation. You stop fearing judgment. You stop fearing exclusion, not because you no longer care, but because you no longer depend. Dependence is the root of social anxiety. The mask severs that dependency. This is where the mask begins to fuse with identity, not as deception, but as alignment. Your internal discipline matches your external restraint. There is no gap to crack. Men who fail at masks fail because they wear them inconsistently. They are calm until insulted, detached until rejected, composed until challenged. Then the mask shatters. True masks do not shatter. They absorb. Absorption requires inner strength. This is why mask mastery cannot exist without self-mastery. If your inner world is chaotic, the mask becomes brittle. If your desires control you, the mask becomes transparent. But when discipline governs impulse, the mask becomes effortless. At this stage, you stop thinking about controlling perception. You simply behave in ways that limit access. You do not overshare. You do not rush intimacy. You do not explain unasked. People adjust, always. One of the most powerful moments in social dynamics is when someone expects an emotional response and does not receive one. Anger, unanswered. Provocation, unmet. Disrespect, absorbed and returned as calm. That moment rewires hierarchy because emotional escalation is how weaker men attempt control. The refusal to escalate is superiority. Now, an important clarification. The mask is not cruelty. It is not hostility. It is not arrogance. It is selective permeability. You decide who gets access, who gets warmth, who gets information. Everyone else gets neutrality. Neutrality is not weakness. Neutrality is dominance without friction. As you practice this, you will notice something subtle. People will start saying things like, "He's hard to read. There's something about him." He doesn't say much, but when he does, these are not compliments. They are signals of influence forming. Every environment has a hierarchy, not the one written on paper, the one felt in the room. Titles matter less than presence. Words matter less than restraint. Intent matters less than perception. And perception is shaped by contrast. In social groups, most men compete for attention. They speak often. They joke loudly. They react quickly. They signal friendliness, availability, eagerness. They believe visibility equals value. It doesn't. Visibility without control equals dilution. The masked man does not compete for attention. He becomes a fixed point within it. When you speak less, people listen more, not because your words are smarter, but because they are rarer. The group begins to orient around your reactions. If you laugh, it matters. If you nod, it matters. If you stay silent, it matters even more. Silence becomes feedback. Most men are uncomfortable, not knowing where they stand, so they try to pull reactions out of you. They tease, they provoke, they overperform. The masked man does not reward this behavior. He does not punish it either. He simply remains centered. This forces recalibration. In work hierarchies, the same principle applies, amplified. Employees who over-explain appear insecure. Leaders who over-communicate appear uncertain. Authority is communicated through decisiveness and calm, not through volume. When you answer briefly, people assume confidence. When you delay response, they assume consideration. When you don't justify yourself, they assume authority. This is not because you are superior, but because perception fills the gap. One of the most powerful tools of the mask in hierarchies is non-defensive behavior. When accused, most men rush to defend. When challenged, they argue. When questioned, they justify. Each defense lowers position. Defense implies vulnerability. The masked man answers calmly or not at all. He lets facts speak. He lets time correct errors. He lets consistency do the work. This creates something rare, unshakable presence. People stop testing you because tests fail to move you. Now consider intimate dynamics. This is where most men collapse their mask completely. They overshare. They rush connection. They reveal insecurities too early. They confuse openness with intimacy. But intimacy is not built through exposure. It is built through progressive access. The masked man does not rush emotional transparency. He reveals in layers, not because he is hiding, but because value increases with depth. When everything is given freely, nothing feels earned. In attraction, mystery is not manipulation. It is polarity. The unknown pulls attention. The unpredictable holds interest. The unreadable creates tension. Tension sustains desire. Men who reveal everything too early destroy tension instantly. They become emotionally flat. The mask preserves edge. Here is a hard truth. People value what they work to understand. If you are immediately understood, you are immediately categorized. And once categorized, you are limited. The mask resists categorization, but misuse of the mask creates distance without gravity, coldness without presence, feels empty, silence without stability, feels awkward, detachment without confidence feels weak. This is why inner discipline must precede external restraint. The mask is not about withdrawing from the world. It is about engaging. Without surrendering control, you can be present without being porous, engaged without being exposed, warm without being available to everyone. At this level, you stop asking, "How should I act?" and start asking, "What information am I releasing right now?" That question alone changes everything. You begin to see conversations as exchanges, not emotional exchanges, informational ones. Who is giving more? Who is revealing more? Who is reacting more? The man who gives less controls the frame. Eventually, something flips. People start seeking your approval, your attention, your reaction, not because you demand it, but because scarcity created value. This is where most men make a fatal mistake. They try to impose authority. Once they feel it, they become rigid, dismissive, cold, and they lose everything they built. Authority that is enforced invites resistance. Authority that is assumed invites compliance. The mask works only when it feels natural, unforced, unthreatening, unmoved. There is a moment most men never reach, a threshold, where the mask is no longer something you put on, because there is nothing left to put on. Your internal state and your external presence finally align. No performance, no calculation, no effort, just coherence. Before this point, the mask requires discipline. You remind yourself to speak less, to react slower, to reveal selectively. After this point, restraint becomes instinct. You don't hold back emotion. You simply don't generate excess emotion anymore. This is mastery. Most men fail here because they misunderstand the goal. They think the mask is about becoming colder. It isn't. It's about becoming centered. Coldness is still reactive. Detachment is neutral. Neutrality is power. When the mask integrates fully, something changes in how people treat you. They stop trying to impress you. They stop trying to dominate you. They stop trying to extract validation. Interactions simplify. People speak more carefully around you. They measure their words. They wait for your response, not because you demand it, but because your presence sets the tempo. At this level, you stop managing perception directly. You manage your internal order, and perception follows automatically. Here is the uncomfortable truth. You cannot fake this stage. People sense internal chaos instantly. If you are suppressing emotion instead of mastering it, your silence feels tense. If you are hiding insecurity instead of dissolving it, your calm feels brittle. The mask amplifies whatever is underneath. This is why inner work is non-negotiable. Without it, the mask cracks under pressure. Stress, conflict, loss, isolation, pressure exposes the core. A man with an integrated mask remains consistent across environments. He does not shift personalities. He does not chase approval. He does not shrink or inflate. His tone stays stable. His posture remains relaxed. His reactions stay measured. This consistency builds something rare: trust without familiarity. People trust him without knowing why, because predictability signals safety, and safety signals authority. But now we reach the danger zone, the point where power begins to isolate. When you become unreadable, some people project onto you. They assume arrogance, they assume manipulation, they assume superiority, not because it's true, but because they cannot place you. Others feel exposed around you. Your restraint mirrors their lack of it. Your calm highlights their volatility. This creates discomfort, and discomfort creates distance. This is the price of control, not loneliness, but selective connection. The crowd thins. Only those with emotional discipline can stay close. Many men panic here. They mistake reduced access for loss, so they soften the mask, over-explain, reassure, lower their presence, and instantly respect evaporates. You must understand this. Not everyone deserves access to your internal world. Depth is not for the masses. It is for the few who can handle it. The integrated mask does not eliminate warmth. It directs it. You become intentional with intimacy, calm in public, precise in private, reserved with most, open with the worthy. This is how you avoid becoming a hollow figure, a statue with no soul. You do not abandon humanity, you protect it. The final mistake to avoid: confusing the mask with superiority. You are not above others. You are simply less reactive. You do not dominate through force. You dominate through stability. Stability is intimidating in a chaotic world because it cannot be shaken. At the highest level, you no longer care how people see you because you trust the structure you've built. If they misunderstand you, fine. If they project, irrelevant. If they leave, expected. Your identity is no longer crowdsourced. This is the paradox. The moment you stop managing perception is the moment you fully control it. At the end of mastery, there is no mask. There is only structure. This is the truth most never reach. The most powerful men are not performing control. They are organized internally. Their thoughts are aligned. Their emotions are regulated. Their values are fixed, so their presence becomes inevitable. When your inner world is ordered, your outer image stabilizes automatically. You no longer try to be calm. You no longer try to be unreadable. You no longer try to project authority. You simply are. This is why beginners obsess over techniques: eye contact, silence, posture, timing. These are scaffolding, not the building. Necessary early, irrelevant later. At the highest level, perception bends because there is nothing to grab onto. No emotional leakage, no overreaction, no need to explain. People cannot solve you, so they stop trying to dominate you. The final form of the mask is not concealment, it is inevitability. Let's collapse the entire philosophy into one principle. People respond not to who you claim to be, but to how stable you remain when pressure is applied. Pressure is the real mirror. Success doesn't reveal character. Conflict does. Loss doesn't define you. Response does. When things go wrong, do you tighten, defend, explain, justify, or do you stay centered? The man who remains centered controls the frame, always. This is why emotional neutrality is misunderstood. It's not emptiness, it's freedom from compulsion. You no longer need to be liked, to be validated, to be understood, to be feared. You operate without hunger. And hunger is what makes men predictable. Predictability is weakness. Once hunger disappears, something profound happens. You stop leaking information, not because you hide, but because there is nothing urgent to share. You speak when it adds weight. You move when it creates leverage. You reveal when it deepens bonds. This is selective expression, and it is the signature of power. Now understand this carefully. You do not wear the mask to deceive. You wear it to filter. Those who rely on chaos won't like you. Those who live emotionally won't understand you. Those who seek drama will drift away. Good. They were never aligned with where you're going. The mask protects trajectory. At this level, your presence becomes instructional. People adjust around you. They lower their voice. They slow their speech. They choose words more carefully. You don't correct them. Your stillness does. This is leadership without declaration, authority without enforcement, dominance without aggression. And here is the final paradox. The more whole you become, the less you need to control anything externally. Control emerges naturally from internal cohesion. This is why the strongest men often appear simple. No theatrics, no intimidation, no need to impress. They are difficult to read because they are complete. Nothing spills out. If you take nothing else from this, do not build a mask to hide weakness. Eliminate the weakness, and the mask will build itself. So ask yourself, where do you leak emotion? Where do you over-explain? Where do you seek permission to exist? That is where the work is. When those gaps close, perception locks in. People will see you as calm, solid, unmovable, even if they don't know why, especially if they don't know why. This is the psychology of masks, not deception, integration. You don't control how people see you by managing their minds. You control how people see you by mastering your own.